introduce themselves, the name of their farm or their organization, maybe something fun happening in your life or something you're looking forward to. We're just going to give people like maybe another couple of minutes. If you're anything like me, I show up just right on time. And then if the camera isn't working or sound or whatever.
Right, Linda, we'll look forward to seeing you. It looks like Mark and Beth with Askegard are here. Ooh, nice warm weather. Excellent. In Moorhead. And Michelle is on. Hi, Michelle. You're going to do some planting this spring. Nice. Yeah.
I know Katie Bono was going to join us today, and but her kidding season started early.
I saw that. I can't wait to see what she starts naming the theme this year.
Yeah, she hasn't revealed it yet, right?
Yeah. Madeline is from Iowa. Nice. Oh, Linda's came up before. So hi, Madeline.
That's funny. All right. Well, people are coming in like crazy, but I think we should probably get started. Hey, Annie, great to see you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and kick things off, just knowing that people are still going to be making their way in for a couple of minutes. We are looking forward to an informative and also just fun and conversational atmosphere around social media today, and then photography tips as well from our very own Katie Cannon. So for our social media panel, we have the team from Food Farm in Renshaw. So we have Janaki, Annie, and Mike, their social media manager. And then we also have Katie Peterson from Ferndale Market in Cannon Falls.
I'm looking for Katie to add her 1 second here.
No, that's okay.
There she is.
And then later on in the hour, we're going to be hearing from our very own Katie Cannon. She's going to share some photography tips with us. And she's also with the Minnesota Cooks program. I think everyone knows that as well, or most people know that. And then we're also going to hear from Brian Erickson from the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. He's going to spend a couple of minutes just sharing a bit about some cost share opportunities that they have related to marketing that fit in perfectly with what we're talking about today. So I'm Claudine. I work for Minnesota Farmers Union, and specifically I spend most of my time and energy on the Minnesota Cooks program, which is the local foods program of Minnesota Farmers Union. And I do see some new faces today. So just very briefly, for those of you who aren't familiar with Minnesota Farmers Union, very simply put, we're an organization that works on behalf of farmers. So the work that we do as an organization is really diversified, ranging from legislative work at the state capitol and also in Washington, D.C., to leadership training, to the education and outreach that we do around local foods with the Minnesota Cooks program. But everything that we do really ties back to providing support for our farmer members. They tell us what they're looking for support around, and then we try to deliver it for them. So, and then specifically with the Minnesota Cooks program, as I mentioned, that's the local foods program of Minnesota Farmers Union. And we're in a time of really interesting growth and kind of evolution, but historically how that program has looked is that every year we choose 12 farm to table partnerships to highlight in our program from around the state. And one of my favorite pieces of the work that I do around Minnesota Cooks is I get to interview our participants and then write short stories about them. So I get an opportunity to really get to know people. And through those interviews and through other conversations that we have with our farmer members, what we've been hearing from people is that they'd really love some support and just a little bit of guidance around marketing. So we all know that farmers wear pretty much every hat that you can wear, including that of a marketer oftentimes. And so that's kind of how we landed here today, just seeing if we could have a productive conversation about social media and share ideas and ask questions and just see where the conversation leads us. For those of you who weren't able to tune in last week, we actually had a really great webinar last week too from another farmer member, Annalise Walker of Walker Farms. And she really covered kind of like more of your digital footprint, from your website and what you want to have there to an email newsletter and capturing information from that, to what to look for with Google Analytics. So that was recorded. So for those of you who weren't able to tune in, I bet my awesome colleague Brita will put that in the chat if she hasn't already, if you want to watch that recording. So with that, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit, and I'd love for our panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with Janaki and Mike from Food Farm, and just introduce yourselves to whatever extent you want, but make sure to talk about the farm. And how about also something you love about social media?
I don't know. That's a tough one. So I'm Janaki Fisher-Merritt from the Food Farm. We raise 15 acres of vegetables and also have some laying hens and some other land in the rotation for cover crops and a little bit of small grains and stuff like that. And most of our produce is marketed through our CSA program. And then we also do quite a bit of wholesale with the food co-ops up here, a couple grocery stores, some restaurants, a food processor, and one of the local hospitals too. So I guess that's the farm in a nutshell. And I'll let Mike introduce himself, but you know, Annie Dugan, my wife, she's also on here, and she, you know, I kind of relied on her a bunch to kind of do some of the social media stuff for us, but of course she works full time and doesn't have time for a ton of it. And we were fortunate and last year that Mike quit his job and went freelance, and we were able to get an arrangement with him to, you know, kind of manage and be the workhorse for our social media promotional stuff, and both through doing the work, but also being kind of a sounding board for when we want to do other events and how it's going to kind of all tie together with the other kind of marketing and member relations that we do. So that's been a huge blessing for us, because it takes the pressure from us off of like trying to do that and a million other things at once. So anyhow.
So it sounds, Janaki, like you're saying your favorite thing about social media is that you were able to delegate it and never think about it again.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. And my other favorite thing is all the people that tell me that they saw something great on our Facebook or Instagram or whatever that I've never seen, and probably never will. But I'm just glad it's nice and that they see it.
Yeah. Annie, do you want to go next, or shall I say who?
I can just say hi. Janaki introduced the farm. As he said, I work full time. I call myself the absentee landlord of the food farm. So but of course I participate through some bit of marketing and you know, listening to the woes of the farm at night. So I'll and I like social media because it gives me something to scroll through while I'm waiting in line, or I wanted to say using the bathroom, but I thought that was kind of crude, so I won't say that. No. I'll turn it over to Mike for a swift recovery.
Okay, well, I'm Mike Schultz. I'm a documentary filmmaker by trade, but I also have a background in marketing. And I met these guys, Annie and Janaki, because we started a film festival in a barn in rural Minnesota, the Free Range Film Festival. And so I've just been working with them for like almost 2 decades now, I think, on a lot of different stuff. And so it was fun a couple of years ago to start helping them a lot more with their social media. I think my favorite thing about social media is that it is free and relatively easy to use. they pay me in vegetables, which I think, especially during the pandemic, has just been the greatest perk of all time.
I love that arrangement so much. I hope that some people listening to this get inspired, to follow that lead and maybe take a little pressure off themselves and find somebody who really has this skill set and delegate. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Katie Peterson, please introduce yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Katie Peterson. I am with Ferndale Market. I head up marketing and communications there. I am part of the third generation of Ferndale. So my grandpa started the farm in Cannon Falls back in 1939. My dad came back after college and got involved in the 70s, is still involved today. And my brother came back in, about 2008 and saw an opportunity to direct market our turkey, which is free range and antibiotic free and always had been, but until 2008, we didn't actually direct market it. So we started the Ferndale brand. Fern and Dale were my grandparents. So that's where the name comes from. And so we now direct market our turkey products under that label. And we also have an on-farm market where we sell not only our turkey, but local food from about 100 different farmers and food producers in the area. So we have two big stories we're always trying to tell, both telling the story of our turkey specifically, but then also our market. And I would say the thing I like about social media, like Mike said, it's free and it is a really great way to share our story and kind of give customers a glimpse into what we're doing.
Thank you. So Katie, as long as you're unmuted, let's keep going with you for a second. Tell everyone about which social media platforms you prefer, why, and then if you strategize the content for them differently, how do you do that?
That's a great question. I prefer Facebook and Instagram, and that's because I've found that that's where our customers tend to be and where we seem to get the most engagement. We actually seem to get the most engagement on Facebook, and I can't ever figure out always why that is, other than that I think that when we launched the Ferndale brand back in 2008, I think a lot of people were there on Facebook, and we have a lot of loyal followers that have continued to follow our posts. I tend to, partly out of ease, I tend to try to use the same content on both Instagram and Facebook. But I will say there are times where I find Facebook to be better with targeting, especially if we're doing like a farm tour or something where we really want to try to target people within a 30-mile radius from Cannon Falls, for instance. I do find Facebook to be really effective at doing that.
All right, thank you. Food Farm team, take it away.
Mm-hmm. We also use a lot of Instagram and Facebook. We, I think, stopped using Twitter years ago. It's probably been taken over by some bad actors now. I haven't checked it in a long time. But we find we get the most engagement on Instagram by far. Facebook is like you said, it's great for if you're having an event or something like that and you want to specifically invite people. I also like it as a platform for videos. If we've recorded a tour or kind of a behind the scenes process of seeding onions. We posted something about seeding onions yesterday. Facebook is just a little bit better platform than Instagram. Instagram is maybe a little better for quicker stories and photos and things like that. We also use YouTube quite a bit. We don't get as much, I don't think, interactivity on YouTube, but a few years ago, Janaki and I became obsessed with Slow TV, which is this Norwegian, the Norwegian public broadcasting system started playing 9-hour videos of a train ride. And it would just be 9 hours of a train ride. And so we just thought, oh, wow, we could show washing carrots for an hour on YouTube, or, you know, moving the chickens for however long that takes, and just let the whole thing play out without any edits really. And so we posted those on YouTube and just thought, wow, we're going to really set the world on fire. And I think 12 people watched some of them, but you know, that's okay. We enjoyed it. And I think, you know, the nice thing is we found something to do with each of the platforms, but in all cases, we're just trying to kind of let people get a glimpse of the food farm's personality, you know, like our interests and what we do. And I think that's kind of the key to using social media, is it's kind of a long game. I don't know that we're always you know, directly converting customers to come to the food farm, you know, the very next day, but we're definitely making them have warm and fuzzy feelings about this place that will, you know, let me watch them washing carrots for an hour.
I love that. Yeah, like leading people in and forming that connection, but not necessarily always trying to make a sale necessarily, right? Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit more? I'm kind of wondering, like, as you look at the whole of your social media in terms of storytelling or trying to get people to events, or actually, if you do ever try to facilitate sales, like, do you have kind of a balance that you try to strike, or how do you think about all of those things?
Yeah, we definitely try to strike a balance with that, because we do, you know, we definitely do try to make sales, you know, at certain times of the year when we want people to sign up. I mean, that's a great place to just remind people of those boring, you know, facts that, oh, it's time to sign up, or, you know, let your friends know it's time to sign up. But we just, you know, we don't make it all about that, because people would stop tuning in. And that's especially true on Facebook, which has a really devilish algorithm. At any one time, Facebook is only going to show your posts to 10% of your audience. You know, the people who have already liked you, they're just not all going to see it. And the only way you can sort of increase the number of people who are going to see it is if you're just constantly posting fun things that a lot of people are interacting with. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling, you know, prophecy sort of thing. So yeah, we try to do a lot of fun things. You know, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it feels to me like it's probably, you know, 50% dumb jokes and 50% sort of behind the scenes process things, and then 5%, you know, actual sales. And yeah, I know that just added up to 105%, but I didn't know where I was going when I was talking. So there we have it.
And I think I'll just chime in too that one of the things that we've tried to do is also realize that it's more that we're promoting more than just ourselves. That so in other words, we had a event this spring, the Rutabaga giveaway, where we were promoting signups for the food farm. But we did it in a way that supported and tried to promote Wusso's Coffee House, which buys a lot of our produce. So it was a way to sort of promote what they were doing. I think that, you know, I'm trying to think of other examples, but I think that that's what, I think it's another opportunity for social media. It's social media for a reason, social being that, you know, you want to support and promote not just what you're doing, but organizations and farms and other things that have some correlation.
And I think that's a benefit of having, that's another benefit of having non-farmers involved in this stuff, because, you know, my own feeling of, oh, we need to be posting stuff is when we need to sell CSA shares. But that, you know, like Mike said, that's a small period during the year when we're really doing that, and having that presence all the time is really, I think, important. You know, I don't know this, I don't know anything about this, but I presume, and I've heard that people pay more attention to you if you're giving them reasons to pay attention the whole year, rather than just the one time of the year that you want them to give you money. And so having that connection is really important, and having non-farmers be the ones who are like, oh, this looks cool, rather than it just being kind of routine for me. Or, you know, the times where I'm super busy and overwhelmed are probably the most interesting times to get content from the farm. And so not having to be that person is really, really important. And the other part about it is that Annie and Mike have a different set of eyes that they bring to it that's more similar to the audience than my eye is. Ideally our audience isn't just other farmers, it's people who want to support us. And so having an eye towards what those people would find interesting is really valuable.
And it's a communication tool for customers and members also. So, I think this piggybacks well with what I imagine Annalise talked about last week, is that you have, like, for us, we do newsletters during the farming season, but like social media is a really direct way of communicating and keeping that connection with customers. Sort of when we need them, they'll be there.
Yep, maintaining that connection. And then Annie, I love what each of you has said, but that piece about amplifying like partners' messages too, and really helping to showcase each other, that's so important as well. And you can reach different audiences that way, also additional audiences. Katie, how about you? How would you respond to that question? Do you even remember it? Should I remember?
Can you remind me?
I can. So just like as you look at your social media as a whole, I love when conversations, by the way, are very circuitous. I love that. So when you look at your social media as a whole, which part of that is more storytelling or really trying to forge those connections versus actually trying to steer people towards an event or make a sale?
Right. Yeah. Now I remember. I agree with a lot of what Mike said, where we really try to kind of break our posts and break our approach into a variety of topics that we're trying to cover, and a small percentage of that being sales. I think we try to have some farm updates, some market updates, some maybe product kind of sales updates. And then we also try to also make sure we're supporting our partners. We work with all the Twin Cities co-ops, for instance, and if they're doing a promotion on our products, we want to make sure that we're helping share that message too. So we really try to have a mix, and we try to kind of consciously think of that, and also know that we have to be a little flexible in what we talk about depending on what's going on that week.
So I would also love your thoughts on this idea of quantity of posts versus consistency in posting. What are your thoughts on that? Because some people post like multiple times a day, and other people might just post a couple of times a month. So how do you approach that? Let's start with you, Katie.
We definitely try to be consistent. I think consistency is key, but I will say consistency means different things to everyone, and we definitely don't take the approach of ton of quantity. We would prefer it to be quality posts, even if that means it's only every few days. I think there have been times in our history where we've felt pressure to like post once or twice every day, and you kind of look back and cringe at some of those things and think like, that wasn't really important, or that didn't, nobody really responded to that anyway. So I think we do try to be a little more thoughtful about what we're posting, and put a little more thought, as much as we can, think ahead about things that would be helpful to post about down the road.
Yeah, I don't know that it's super important to post a couple of times a day, especially on Facebook and Instagram, where your latest post, even if it was 2 days ago, is going to bubble to the top for the people who regularly check in with you. So we're definitely more of a quality more than quantity type of operation. But I think Annie and I get a little bit anxious if we haven't posted once almost every day. And it's nice because since the pandemic started, she's always at the farm. So I think that's helped a lot if you could trap someone at the farm and have them take photos all the time. It's pretty great. But yeah, I think in the wash, we almost post daily. It's more like maybe every other day. But I think that's okay.
So I had a question get sent to me that once you do catch people's attention, when do you know that it's the right time to then try to make a sale? quote unquote make a sale?
I guess when we're selling something or when we have. So, I mean, I think that, you know, because we, Katie might be able to talk to more like target. We don't necessarily target that much. We had a campaign, maybe, I can't remember, 5 years ago, where we did do targeting advertising, but now we sort of do just blanket posts primarily. So, you know, I think that we try and couch it in, when we're trying to sell something, it's a multifaceted approach. So in other words, like, it's not just like one post that says, okay, our sales are open now. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be that direct post, but it's also going to be, you know, maybe a funny, jokey one. You know, I have 2 boys, so I have a lot of pictures in my camera roll. I use them, I'm afraid. And so there's that, you know, so I think that, like, it's, you know, it's not going to be just one direct sale. It's going to be like sort of like a 2-week process of, oh yeah, we should remind people that, again, do that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we try to not think of social media as a place for hard sales, but as somebody kind of mentioned earlier, just kind of like an ongoing relationship and a place where we can engage with our customers and they can engage with us.
I love that. Yeah, Annie, I love that you said before the social piece, to remember, like, it is social. It's about building those connections. Yeah. I love this question from Katie Bono that she posed in the chat for everyone. How much of your content do you plan in advance, and how much is just true to the moment posting? I'm really curious too, if you guys have like mapped out social media calendars, or like what that looks like. So go ahead, whoever wants to grab this one.
So I can answer, because it's a hard no. We don't have any of it planned out. I mean, very little planned out in advance. We did plan out the Rutabaga giveaway in advance. And I guess we built like a lemonade, or, you know, we painted a lemonade stand type booth as a Rutabaga giveaway booth. And then, you know, that gave us, you know, content for several weeks, which was such a weird luxury that never happens for us. Like, you know, yesterday I got a text in the morning from Janaki saying, what are you doing today? Just come over. They're seeding onions today. And you could maybe get like a kind of like a Mr. Rogers style, you know, shot by shot, you know, documentary about the process of it. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I'll come over and do that. So that's really how we operate, which is probably, I don't know, maybe that's good for people to hear, that you don't have to plan it out ahead of time. Just take the opportunities when they come.
I would also add to that we have, both Mike and I have like a bank of images, so that, like, if I don't feel like walking outside for the day to take something, that I can notice that, oh, we need to post today, or it's been a while, that we can go back in the bank and sort of have evergreen content that we can use too.
I think the other piece of it is most of the planning that's involved. Well, Annie and Mike have conversations, you know, that I never know about, which is great. But I think the most in actual planning ahead comes when there's something that I actually want on there, which happens maybe once a year. And then I have to tell Mike, is it okay if I do this or not? Or, you know, just because I don't want to get in the way of what they're doing, because what they're doing is more important.
Katie, how about you? What are your thoughts?
I do have a calendar. I would say it's very rough. And I would say in non-pandemic times, it's probably a little more, there are more things set in stone, obviously, because there are more events and, you know, things happening out in the world. So for instance, if we're having, like I said, like a farm tour or something, I just make sure I have that on the calendar, and I'm, you know, planning to post leading up to that a certain number of times. I also find, for me, it helps to kind of quell some of that anxiety about, oh no, what am I going to post about today? So, you know, having some ideas, and they're not all perfectly thought out or even scheduled, but, you know, knowing that, okay, I should really do a farm update this week, or we have a sale going on our, turkey breast this week in the market. Let's make sure to talk about that. Just helps me to, kind of have those ideas scheduled out for, a couple of weeks in advance if I can.
I love this. I feel like you guys are really giving people permission to be more spontaneous around it and not feel like we need to be so rigid. I think that's been one of my hangups, actually, that I've felt like we should have that very clear mapped out social media calendar. I just want to remind our participants too that our attendees, we'd love for this to be interactive. So if you have questions, pop them in the chat. If you outsource your social media, I would love for you to just maybe say a couple sentences about like what that experience is like for you and if it's worth it to you. It sounds dreamy when I'm hearing Mike and Janaki and Annie talk about it. And Katie, you too, like that the marketing and branding is your focus. We're lucky we have Katie Cannon who kind of takes care of ours. But let's move on to like hashtags and tagging. Can you guys just give like an overview of what are the point of hashtags and how to use them properly and how is it different from tagging and how it can be beneficial? Mike,
you want to take that?
Not really, but I can. I have a complicated relationship with hashtags because I think they're really usable and actually, I don't know if everyone knows what they are. It's basically, a word you could put at the end of your post or in the middle of the post, and you put that numeral hashtag mark in front of it. And that allows it to cross-reference with everyone else on that platform who has ever hashtagged that exact same word. So it can be a nice way for complete strangers to find your posts. And in fact, Annie posted her kids building a sort of an escape to the chateau Lego structure a couple of weeks, maybe just a week ago. And that was by far the most views we've had on a social media post in months and months. I don't know if it's all British people, maybe, who watch Escape to the Chateau, but it's a nice ego boost every once in a while when you see there's thousands of people watching it. I think hashtags can be really useful if you want to like group a certain number of your posts. Like we had a Rutabaga giveaway in February, and so everything was hashtagged Rutabaga giveaway at the end, hashtag Rutabaga giveaway. Last year, it was not the year of the carrot, but we decided we were just going to call it the year of the carrot because we wanted to talk about carrots a lot for a few months. So we just hashtagged year of the carrot. And that was super fun because we got a lot of people saying, no, it's not the year of the carrot. It's the year of broccoli. I just looked it up. And we just kept doing it. And then we had all these posts, that were hashtagged year of the carrot. And then, sometimes it's fun for me to just see, well, what are other people, posting on, if hashtag escape to the chateau or things like that. The other fun thing you can do on Instagram is geotagging, where you just always tag the location of where you're at. When we did the Rutabaga giveaway, we did it in the parking lot between a bookstore and a bakery. And so we would, geotag both of those. So then we're showing up on everyone who's ever taken a selfie in front of this bookstore or at the bakery. And so those are just fun ways to try and, expand your reach a little bit. I don't know how useful they are because like I said, those could be entirely people in Wales or France looking at those. But it's certainly a way to try and expand your reach.
One thing, I haven't talked to Mike about this yet, but Janaki and I talked about it. And one of the things that we want to try and do this summer, we got this idea from a marketer at the Moses, the organic conference that was just this last week. And she does a competition with her members where they send in all their ugly carrot photos. So like, because carrots can have, X-rated things, or they can have multiple legs. And so I was thinking this summer that we should do a hashtag ugly carrot or hashtag heart-shaped potato, and then like slip in a couple of those carrots to the member carrot bags so they can, you know, trying to give any way that you can trick people into promoting your farm for you on social media is nice. So that was a hashtag trick that I think we're gonna maybe try and use this summer.
That's super fun. Katie, anything you want to add on that?
I would just say we try hashtags a lot. We experiment with them, but like Mike, I don't know if it really helps, you know, reach the right people or not. I always think it doesn't hurt to try, but I don't find that probably helps us. Now, tagging other people, like if we're talking about our turkey at Kowalski's, for instance, we'll tag Kowalski's and that might help. It certainly helps them see the post and share the post if they want to. So I think that's probably more helpful in actually reaching more people, tagging partners.
My colleague helped me out and pointed out that I had missed a question. So I'm going to ask you guys to answer this question. Then we'll probably go on to Katie's photography after that and just see what time we have after Brian shares his information about cost share programs. But the question is, if growers are intimidated by starting on social platforms, is it effective to hire someone to help manage? And does anyone have an idea of the cost? And Mike, it sounds like you work for vegetables, but yeah, I'd love to hear other thoughts on that.
I don't know if anyone does have any other thoughts. I think I don't know what it would cost, so I may not be the best person to talk about this because I do it for trade, but I kind of wonder if most farms are going to have members who may be into photography or videography or, you know, social media. I think it's definitely something worth thinking about. That's really all I wanted to add on that.
And I don't know, I'm not sure what it would cost either, but along with what Mike was saying, one thing that I found really interesting doing social media for Ferndale, and I've worked with other farms in the past, is sometimes I think we forget how basic posts can be and how most of our audience doesn't know anything about what we're doing. And so, you know, sometimes for us, it's as simple as saying, I think it was last week, I posted about how we'd started a new flock of poults, baby turkeys, and it had the barn, we have to keep the barn at 98 degrees, you know, and that was when we were in the crazy cold weather, and we got a ton of engagement there. And again, that's something that we don't think about, but it's, you know, those little behind the scenes glimpses like that. It might just be a sentence or two of something again that seems so basic to us, but so that's just all to say that I think sometimes it can be a little more simple than we think, and to maybe, you know, step back and remember that all of this might be new to the people reading your posts.
I think Katie's exactly right. Like the process of what you all do is so fascinating to so many people, and I just never forget that. And I think I'm really excited to hear what Katie has to say for tips, because I think the bar is also shockingly low for what can constitute, you know, a good short video or a good photo, as long as you just have like a sentence or two of a little bit of explanatory copy. You know, here I'm just showing you what this looks like or what that would be like, you know, here at the farm.
And actually, I just want to say, if you do outsource it, that we use, Janaki takes photos on his phone all day, and he has a Google Photos on his app. And so I can have access to all of the photos he takes. So if you're working with someone using you know, there's a lot of different options, but Google Photos is what we use. And then he just gives me access to his. And so on occasion, I have posted like a shot of his like tractor motor that he's taking apart. And he had just like, you know, there's like all of his photos are just tractors and equipment, but every once in a while it's funny to put one of those on too. So whoever you're doing it with, just make sure that they're linked to the photos that you're taking too.
The other thing I would want to add quick is just that since so much of this, at least for us, so much of it is about social engagement, and people are often engaged around things that are fun or quirky. Two things. It's important to have somebody, if you do hire somebody who knows your voice sort of and your personality, so that those things aren't in conflict, because our farms are often kind of extensions of ourselves. And so if someone that doesn't know who you are and kind of your personality and voice is posting things, it might feel really invasive and weird. I mean, to somebody like me, it always feels a little weird to put yourself out there like that, but there's a difference between that and actually being not liking what's going out. And we did hire somebody a while back that didn't really know us, and their voice didn't really match ours, from everything from like fonts they would use and just kind of the tone of different things. And it wasn't awful. It was probably still beneficial, but it just didn't feel authentic, and it didn't feel like our voice. And so, we're just so fortunate to be working with Mike, because, not only have we been friends for years, we've also worked together in the film festival in a way that we kind of know each other's personal voices and professional voices. And, he knows sort of how we would do things, but we also know, oh, Mike knows what he's doing. And even if something might make us a little uncomfortable, he's probably right about it. And those things are really helpful to a working relationship. And so that the whole thing of, so that's that piece. The other little chunk I might add is, I don't know, and this may be way off base, and I don't want to demean what Mike does, because he's a professional and does this for a living. But if you don't have somebody that you know or is in your area or connected with you somehow that does this stuff, and you feel totally intimidated by it, it might be a fun project to do with your kids if they know this stuff, or have your kids do with their friends, assuming they're old enough to be reasonable about it. But you could totally see kids really getting into it and promoting the place that they live and their family and the work that happens, and they know how to do it. I've tried posting a couple times. I never know where it's going. It's just infuriating, and I don't want to take the brain space to learn it, and I wouldn't probably be good at it anyway. So having somebody that knows all the ins and outs because they do it already, I think could be helpful. It doesn't necessarily have to be a professional, just somebody you can have a good relationship with and have fun ideas with.
I love that. Yeah, that authenticity. And then also a theme that you guys just spoke to that I absolutely love is this theme of like playfulness and just being willing to experiment. That really gives me permission too. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. And Katie, let's get some photography tips from you. So Katie Cannon has her own business as Katie Cannon Photography. And then she also is our Minnesota Cooks photographer as well. And we are so lucky to have her as a team member. So go ahead, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Cannon, as Claudine said, and I'm just going to share a few tips, because I know that one thing that can be very intimidating when it comes to social media is people expect some great content, not only written, like we've heard about, but also when it comes to the visuals, and visuals can be very important. So I have a few slides that I'm going to share, because as I said, visuals are very important. And let me get these up here. Just to walk through, I'll try and go through these. I hope everybody can see this, because I can't see you anymore. So a few photo tips. First of all, I just want to emphasize that the most important thing to do is just to get visuals, is to forget about whether you are photographing with your phone or forget about whether you have a professional camera that you're using, and it's just to get the images. And great images can be taken with all sorts of cameras. So if that's something that's keeping you from taking photos or trying it out, I hope this will kind of break it down a little bit. These are tips that are not meant to be all encompassing, but they're just meant to make us all a little bit better at taking pictures. And in fact, who knows, maybe you can apply these not only to social media, but to the pictures you take of your friends and family too. You can impress them with what you know. So the first tip is when you are taking a photo, particularly for social media, to always ask yourself, why am I taking this photo? There's a story behind, as we heard the panelists say, there's a story behind what you are trying to do with your social media account, and knowing your subject. So I said, why am I taking this photo? As we heard, farms are many times extensions of our families. And so this particular image is from Food Farm, and you can see that there's Janaki and he's holding fresh carrots and he has one of his sons sitting there. So you can see that this image tells a story. So look for the stories that you can tell. This tells a story about freshness, about not only the vegetables, but who's growing them and the family behind it as well. Let's see here. This is another example of that. Sometimes your story can be, you can take multiple images that tell different stories. So don't just take, one photo and then think you've captured that content, but you can see the photo on the left here. It's probably more of a story that you might want to have to say that, talking about the greenhouse, talking about how things are coming up in bloom. This middle image is more about the vegetables. And then you can even see that you can see the water line here. All of these information, all of these little tidbits can be social media posts. You can imagine information that, as we said, not all of our viewers have been to farms or grew up on farms or know anything about farming. So it's nice to be able to point things out and make different scenes with your social media posts, even if within the same scene. The next tip is just to vary your angles and your perspective. Again, this kind of is similar to the prior example, but this was all taken within minutes of each other at another one of MFU farmer members. And you can see that this is all giving that kind of that scene of planting and spring and growth. But again, this one's including the one on the left is including the farmer and showing the tray, and you can see the growth there. Claudine pointed out that the middle photo tells a story that it's not just the one tray, but there's many, many trays that go into planting, and the tools that are necessary. Sometimes common tools that we use can be interesting, and they can really help kind of put the full story into effect. And on the right, you can see that the seeds are starting to sprout, and it tells just a little bit more. And this is all, I know Annie used the word evergreen earlier, and I don't know if everybody is familiar with that term, but in social media and maybe in other areas, evergreen is a word that people use that means that you can use it anytime. So anytime you want to talk about spring or planting or green or fresh or anything like that, these are great images, including the ones from the prior that you could pull out many different times. So it's not just going out and saying, I need content for today. I'm going to take a picture so that I have content for today. But if you take several images of the same thing, you might find that you use this post today. And this is evergreen content that then you could use later to talk about the planting process. And you have these already, and you don't have to recreate all the time. Another angle that you'll see used a lot is the overhead angle, which I like to do. So you look straight down on something, or you can also crouch down. You change your perspective. If you are standing, crouch down and take a picture. Things look different, no matter, things look different when you change your own perspective. That's what the camera is seeing, and that's what your viewers will see as well. The tip number 3 is to minimize distractions. This one is, I didn't have a great example of this, but this one is, you can see it's at Ferndale. This is actually John holding one of the little baby turkeys. You can see that this is very distracting. You can see the telephone pole and telephone line behind. Probably doesn't bother many people. It bothers me as a photographer, and other people maybe as well. It just doesn't fully say what I wanted to say about this. And so I simply asked John to just turn his body, and I moved my own body to minimize that distraction. The pole, obviously, I can't move. I can't. Sometimes you can, to minimize distractions, you can move something that's not relevant to the photo out of the way to draw focus to your subject. But in this case, obviously, I can't move a telephone pole or an electric line. So I just turned, and now it's no longer in my point of view. You can also use your body angle too. Sometimes if something is really tall and coming out of the back of somebody's head, you can crouch down and suddenly you'll find that their body covers that up completely and you won't even see it at all. So always look to minimize distractions as well. You'll see this a lot. Actually, the example I was thinking of, but I didn't want to put a picture of me on here, was it seems like every time I have my husband take a photo, I've got something in the background that's like growing out of my head, whether it's like a tree that's behind me or whatever else it is. And so I think he's got it now that he needs to look around at the background. In addition to me, when I'm in as his subject, but always look to see, are there trees growing out of someone's head? Is there a telephone pole growing out of that person's head? And it's pretty easy to just turn and change that distraction. Number 4 is to think about lighting. And Claudine actually asked me to specifically hit on this one. And I was a little hesitant simply because lighting is such a big, broad topic. And I mean, so many classes obviously could be taken on lighting, but I found a good example that I think I can help break it down. The easiest way to think about lighting is to find good lighting. And good lighting is going to just mean, for most of us, just finding some consistent lighting. So if you're, for instance, on the picture on the left with the turkeys, if your subject is in the shadows and the back of your picture or the background is very bright, you're not going to have even lighting. You can see that turkey ends up really dark. What I was trying to do here was tell a story about these little houses that the turkeys live in, or they have access to, the shade that they get, because that is all part of their environment. So of course I kindly asked this turkey to step outside so that I could have better lighting. But I found a turkey that was on the outside, and you can see the lighting got a little bit better. It's still pretty bright because the sun was in front of me. You can see this turkey's backlit, and I still wasn't super happy. I was getting a little bit more of the image that I wanted with this shelter, but not exactly there. So what I did was I just walked around the shelter and I found this turkey hanging out over here. What I'm not showing is I cropped out a bunch of distractions. There were some other turkeys doing some things that, like turning around and doing other things that I didn't think were applicable to the photo. And I found this, and this was my final shot here with this turkey. You can see the shelter. I was trying to tell that story, and there are minimal distractions in it. So think about lighting. If you can't get great lighting, then maybe you just need to move yourself and look at it from a different perspective, like we talked about, like with this turkey. And then the last one, you might all recognize this image. It was on the back of the, I think 2015 calendar, perhaps. This is that turkey that's got a blade of grass coming out. And that was such a fun image. And you can see on the right, he's all in focus. But think about focus. Social media posts or just pictures in general just, are not fun to look at when what you want to be seen is not in focus. The subject is clearly this chicken, and clearly he has this, or she has this blade of grass in her mouth, and we wanted to get the image just before she had moved. And you can see the one that I took, she's not in focus. What is in focus is this chicken on the right and unfortunately, the backside of another chicken on the left. So if I were to post this on social media, while it's funny, you can see that same chicken still has that blade of grass. It just wasn't the right moment, wasn't in focus. So waited another second, and I got this image on the right, fully in focus, and it tells the full story. one thing I wanted to just mention on focus is on, it's easy to do with a professional camera, and now it's really easy too with handheld phone cameras. All of these tips that I'm talking about are easy to implement with your phone. One quick tip on focus is if you're not finding your subject in focus, what you can do is you can touch your screen where your subject is, and your phone will automatically lock its focus right on your subject. The thing to be cautious of with that is it will also adjust the brightness, and it will apply as much light as it needs to accurately light your subject. So you need to just use that with a little bit of caution. But if you're having a hard time focusing, if you have good even light, then I would try that tip, and that would be to focus and keep that focus. And that's another little tip when it comes to videos too. If you're taking a photo of an animal or a kid that's running around, you can do that auto lock on your subject, and they will stay in focus. Your camera will follow them. So those were my photo tips that I had. And we'll have some time for question and answer in just a minute. I just wanted to come back out here, and we're going to ask Brian Erickson. It looks like he's off of mute. Brian is with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and he's going to share a few slides here. So I'm going to bring these up. Brian's now spotlighted on your screen as well. So I will move ahead, and Brian is going to take over.
Well, thank you, Katie and Claudine and Farmers Union for inviting me to participate. It's exciting to see some of the names that are on the list here, some old friends of mine from way back. I've been with the State Department of Agriculture and the Ag Marketing Development Division for over 30 years now, so had a number of roles during that time, a lot of local foods work with Minnesota Grown, and also worked on export promotion for a time, and now I kind of landed in a fun place that we call the New Markets Program. So New Markets Program is kind of a resurrection of what used to be called the Processed Foods Program that kind of went away when state budgets were tight during the 90s. But our resources that fund the program, called the Agri Fund, really kicked in about 2012, 2013, and the department had the foresight to give a chunk of that budget to me to help small food companies with marketing, and again, kind of resurrect the processed food work that we were doing. And so we started working on helping small food companies and finding out what their pain points were. We started a cost share program that helped with store demos and trade shows. And then we also traveled around the country to food shows like Natural Products Expo West, and hosted Minnesota companies in what we call the Minnesota Pavilion at those events to try and hold up those brands and help them maximize their participation at those events. Again, these were more activities that were more directly related to CPG companies, consumer packaged goods companies. But we did work some with small farmers that had value-added products like jams and jellies, for example. And then COVID hit, a year ago yesterday, we were hitting the ground in Anaheim for the Natural Products Expo West event. And we learned as we landed that the event had been canceled due to COVID. So it was an interesting time, and it's been a whirlwind since then. But what that has done is kind of given us an opportunity to relook at our cost sharing program and to add some things that I think are more valuable to small farms and farms that have value-added products. And I know there are a couple of people, at least on this call today, that have participated. But one of the things that we added post-COVID here is supporting work around e-commerce. And on the screen here, you kind of see some of the eligible costs that we allow. So it's sort of tangentially related to, your social media work. But if you're a small farm and you do some e-commerce, basically any of the costs related to that e-commerce are eligible for 50% reimbursement from our program. And I know on here it says to be announced in early February. It's actually that was aspirational. It's actually going to be released tomorrow probably, and if not early next week. But up to $3,000 of your e-commerce costs can be reimbursed if you have a Minnesota grown license or if you process a food product in Minnesota. And then also, if you have a value-added product, we'll also help with some other costs like store merchandising. I know somebody earlier was talking about promotions at the store level. So we picked a couple of what we consider high impact trade promotion costs, which are end cap promotions and store flyers, and will also help with the cost to do those activities with retail chains. So lots of ways to kind of extend your marketing budget with the help of the Minnesota Department of Agriculture right now. Again, it's a cost sharing program, so you spend the money, you send in an application form along with a receipt, and we send you a check for 50% of that cost up to, I believe the limit is going to be $3,000. We're actually making the final decision on that in the next day or two here. So thank you again for having me, and I'm happy to answer questions, or you can look me up anytime. I would recommend going to our website and signing up for what we call the New Markets Note, so that you have, if you're interested in this, so that you have updates on when these grant programs are open and available to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Brian and Katie. Yeah, that was awesome. Brian, MDA does so much work to support farmers. Thank you for everything you just shared with us. We are always really mindful to be respectful of people's time. So we went just a couple minutes over, but any last minute questions or comments from anyone as we wrap up? I don't want it to be too jarring and just say a quick goodbye, but also trying to be respectful.
I saw a question from Linda in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
She says, does it matter if your phone is held vertically, horizontally for the benefit of zooming or editing? That's a great question. And not for that benefit. But one thing that you should think about when it comes to holding your phone, and what we're talking about is whether you hold it horizontally or whether you hold it vertically, is what you're going to use your content for. Now Instagram makes it really nice that all images, you can show the full image in horizontal or in vertical. You don't just have to crop to a square anymore. You can tell I'm very visual. But for video, that's when you really need to think about it. If you are going to be producing a video, most likely you're going to be wanting to hold it in horizontal. That's how we typically see TV. And if you're going to be combining it with other video content or images, you're going to want to have it in horizontal. The exception to that is if you're going to be doing an Instagram story or a story, and those are in horizontal. And I would say the same thing with photos for that too. They just show better in a horizontal. So if you know that you're not going to be using it for anything other than just a quick story on, which is just quick content that goes away in 24 hours, then I would just shoot it like this, because it will show well in your story. If you are going to be wanting it as evergreen content, as we talked about, it's better to have it in horizontal, all video in horizontal. As far as photos go, doesn't matter. Horizontal, portrait, either way works. And for the benefit of zooming and editing, sorry, just to say, the most important thing there is how high quality of an image it is, how many pixels. And without getting too technical, basically, I'll just say any phones that we are photographing with right now, your image quality is going to be just fine for zooming. The thing I would say to be careful on is that when people start zooming in, you start to lose photo quality. So if you zoom in on an image and then you're trying to crop it later, you're going to lose some photo quality and you might start seeing some graininess. You'll also find that you might start it'll show shaking a little bit more, especially on video. That's all technical stuff, but I'm just going to say, just take the image, crop it later to what you want it, and it doesn't matter if it's vertical or horizontal. Anybody else want to jump in on that? I'm happy to hear that too.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, Linda, good job. Any other questions? Oh, okay, Diana. Diana says, all my goats are black. Any suggestions on taking photos that don't look like the void? It says it doesn't matter what time of day. Okay, so really quickly, because goats do move, they're not like a row of crops that you can't say, hey, let's come inside for a nice photo shoot. If there is a chance to get your subject in what we call open shade, which is a shaded area that's not like a harsh sun, but it's like, if you think of like, if you're in the woods and it's still brightly lit, but it's all shaded, that is going to be an ideal situation where you can manually adjust your brightening on your camera as you're taking it. Even an iPhone, you can do that without getting that bright background. That's probably what's happening to you, is you are focusing on that black goat, and the background is getting all blown out if you're trying to get some detail in the fur. The other option is to have the sun at your back so that they are really well lit. And then that way everything behind them is really well lit. And when you do try and adjust and get some shadows, you're not going to have that bright, over bright background as well. And Diana, if you got other problems, send me an image and I'll see if I can save it for you.
Well, I'm going to wrap things up. I'm so appreciative of everyone. Thank you to all of you for your time and for spending it with us today and for everything that you shared. I'm just one of those people that's always hyper vigilant about people's time. So it seems like a really good discussion though, and like maybe one that we should continue going forward. It feels like there's so much more that we could have talked about and that we just hit the tip of the iceberg. So a huge thank you to Janaki and Mike. Anne, is it Anne or Annie? Why do I always want to call you Annie?
It either works. I
Okay.
type it out as Anne, but most people call me Annie. So you're right both ways, or you're wrong both ways. Depending on
all right. And Katie and Brian, we just appreciate you all so much. Two super quick things. These are very different, but on March 31st, we're going to be having another event at noon to 1 about the relationship between railroads and agriculture. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And then on Thursday, April 8th, we're going to have a happy hour at 5 p.m. with Derek Taylor from Lakes and Legends Brewing Company, the first Minnesota-grown brewing partner in the state. So anyway, we'll get Eventbrite out to those soon. But yeah, again, thank you to everyone so much. I hope you got something helpful out of it. And if you think of another event that you want, please send us a note. We'd love to hear about it. All right, let's unmute and say goodbye. It's so silent. It kind of feels weird when it's so silent.
Goodbye.
Thanks for organizing this.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate that. Oh, you guys were awesome. Thank you so much for everything you shared. We really appreciate you.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right.